Hello and welcome to this edition of Consider This. I'm your host, Charles Lake. Today we're going to touch on autism. We're not going to go all the way through all the information I have, but we're going to go through some of the what I think is the best information. In 2014, this article was written, and it's a really good article. It's really hard to find on the internet. The best way to find it is through the name. As it says here, they move it, they take it down for a period of time, so the links may no longer work. I'll be putting it up on my page whenever my webmaster gets around to it. She's kind of has a lot on her plate right now. They found that there are two chemicals back in 2006 through 2014 that increase the odds of developing autism. And these two, well, one of them is a heavy metal, which increased the risk by 65%. And that heavy metal is chromium. And that you would think would not be all over the place, but it's in diesel exhaust. It's in a lot of different of things. In fact, it's even in some of our foods. So the other is styrene, which I've already showed you how the FDA has been letting the food industry put styrene in our food as a food additive, which we've talked about that a bunch of health professionals got together and petitioned the FDA in 2015 to eliminate it because it does cause cancer. Of course, it also causes diabetes and a laundry list of health concerns. And it's in car exhaust. It's in anything that burns. It's very hard to get around. And back in 2014, there were 1 out of 68 children in the United States, according to the CDC, that were affected by autism. Now, I have to skip here a little bit, and the doctors have, this doctor here in particular, Dr. Talbert, has said that they know that 10% of autism spectrum disorders run in families. So 90% of the people, the children that have autism are basically what they call, what's a good way of putting it? Collateral damage from these chemical companies and from all the stuff that we're putting in the air. And they're talking just about in the air. They haven't, if we go back up here, it just basically, they're talking about the chemicals that cause autism that are in the air. They're not taking into consideration these same chemicals that are being leached into our food from the food containers, styrene, all the styrene that's being put in our food as a food additive, or any of the other chemicals that are put in our food as a food additive. And there are 30 pollutants that they're actually looking at that known to affect the brain glands and hormones, which, if you watched our last show, styrene, back in 1980, they knew that styrene affected the hormones. in of all the chemicals listed for this, the study detected that styrene, chromium, and to a lesser extent cyanide stood out as the most associated with autism. So, um, and it says down here that styrenes in plastics and paints, but it does not say that cyanide can be found in car exhaust. It don't say that chromium gets in the air. It says industrial operations. It doesn't power plants and so forth, but it doesn't say that it comes into the air from diesel exhaust, which they haven't considered the whole realm from what I can gather. So if you live in a highly trafficked area of diesel equipment and things, it it would probably, or cigarette smoke is also mentioned in this. So, and I'm going back to the Harvard study of 2006 here, and they said 30 compounds, but in 2006 they were looking at a lot more. So they've isolated it a little bit. But styrene, uh, in fact, they they've eliminated some of. They still have the cyanide, but the chromium's not even in the list that they were looking at first. So they've come a little way since 2006 to 2014. So but in the 2006, back on page 8 here, we're getting there. We're getting there. They did say that neurotoxic chemical procedure, lifelong changes to behavior and shortened attention span, increased impulsivity, heightened aggressiveness, slowed motor coordination, and impaired memory and language skills. I mean, this is what maybe we're seeing with all these shootings and things of this nature, because this didn't happen overnight. It We've been using styrofoam and we've been building for years, so this has happened over a good 60 to 100-year period, and it's not going to go away overnight. This here research paper, let me get it so we can see it here. 100%. We can eliminate that. This here was done in 2013 by the Southern Pennsylvania University of Pittsburgh, and here we're just going to go through we're not going to go through the whole 16 pages. We'll go through the conclusion. Living in areas with higher levels of styrene and chromium during pregnancy is associated with increased risk of autism syndrome disorder, with borderline effects from other. I'm not sure. Can't remember what that stood for, but these are all health problems. And like I said, if you live near industry where diesel's going in and out, this here can affect you and your unborn child. We go to this one here. Well, here we go again. Let's see where we go. 125. This is done by you can get it on the Harvard site, and this is done in 2013. And if you look up this here, or you can link to it through here, you will be able to find this document. And like I said, I don't put the links on my YouTube page because these links change all the time. And this here study was done, um, and they kept track of children with autism, and this is some of the stuff goes back to 1989. So they've been researching this for some time. Of course, it don't show when you go to the Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry. They say that there's no studies being done, but in all actuality, there are studies being done. And so this here is quite extensive. It has styrene listed in it 10 times. It goes into different things that styrene is. But like I told, styrene is everywhere because we're actually, the FDA has let the food industry put this chemical in our food in minute amounts so it don't have to be labeled on the label. And chromium we talked about, and I just bring it down here a little bit. And there's chromium in broccoli, grape juice, turkey breast, English muffins, potatoes, green beans, white wine. And, when we were a kid, we were given grape juice all the time. So there's the autism rate has only jumped since we've been using so much plastic. And in 1990, the autism rate was about 1 in every 500 children back in the 90s. And last year it was 1 in every 46. In 2014, it was 1 in every 68, like you've seen. So it's steadily climbing. So we definitely have to do something. And I found this on cyanide. And cyanide is also, cigarette smoke, vehicle exhaust, and foods such as spinach, bamboo shoots, almonds, lima beans, fruit pits, tapioca. So our bodies can absorb some of this, but with all the styrene that's in the air, I read that 14% of the air that we breathe outside is styrene, and inside it could be as high as 20%. Because of all the styrene that we use in the materials we use to build our houses and things. So, we really have to start looking at, is the health of our population more important than the plastics industry, or the diesel fuels and things that we use? Should we actually start getting more and more involved into getting away from having home heating oil and going to solar or whatnot to heat our houses? Like I said, in the last show, I brung this up, and this is the effect of styrene on the levels of serotonin and I can't pronounce that word, so we're not even going to go there. But in this document from 1980, reports of migration of polymer styrene into food materials stored in polystyrene food containers have great concern due to their toxic properties. And then we went down and we saw that styrene increased the levels of serotonin by 62.5% and 50% on the other neurotransmitter. And these affect how we think, and this goes right back to here. Neurotoxic chemical procedures, lifelong changes in behavior, shortened attention span, increased impulsivity. So this goes, that 1980 document is alive right here in this 2006 and beyond, because a lot of what's happening in 2014, 2017, all reflects back. They all come back and note this 2006 document as one of their actual starting points. But if you actually look at it, and if the FDA and CDC and Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry actually looked, they would have found this, and they would have maybe treated us a little bit differently and put our health ahead of the polystyrene food containers or the other things, and we would have been looking to change how we do our business and how we look at our population, instead of letting it run wild with the diabetes and so forth. So that's what we're done today. And I've been asked by some of the government officials that I've been talking to why it is that the polystyrene or the styrene lobby has been saying that there's nothing wrong with their stuff, and I'm going to do a show and show that they will say I cherry picked this information to show you, but I'm going to show you how they cherry pick their information to show you that it's not harmful. And it's pretty damning, because it shows that, just like tobacco products, when they were saying, oh, it's not addictive and so forth and so on. In fact, the styrene that leaches out of the polystyrene food containers has the same side effects as the tobacco products, even though it's only one chemical that comes out of the tobacco products. So that's very significant. And if you have somebody with autism, and like I say, I am not a doctor. I am an old truck driver who was poisoned by the polystyrene food containers, who looks up this information because my body I've gone through 7 strokes, 4 heart attacks, multiple mini strokes. I'm an insulin dependent diabetic, and I also had my thyroid removed because of multiple cancers. And I'm getting on in life, and this is one way I can show people to start helping themselves to stay away from certain things that might be very harmful to their health. So we'll talk to you again on the next show. Please call your local, state, and federal representatives and see if you can get something going in your area. You have a good day and a better life. Bye.